everybody. Welcome back to the Level Up Your Legacy podcast, where we aim to help you build the legacy you hope to leave one day at a time. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. We are excited that you've joined us today. We're going to circle back to a topic that we started last week just because it's so paramount. The power of building connections on your team. Dr. Henry Cloud, in his book, Boundaries for Leaders, talks about how connections actually reduce stress for the members of your team and increase your productivity. And not only that, but it just makes work more fun and more enjoyable for everyone. So we thought this is such a huge topic. We're going to give it a second week. We're going to talk about building connections, but through the lens of maybe a different perspective. Now, say you just got a job and you inherited a team that you know nothing about, and they know nothing about you, or maybe they're just a bunch of new people that you just hired that have never built connections before. Let's talk about how to start building connections. What is one ground level way to start that connection building process?
Yeah, so great question. And actually, I've had two different teams this past year who, in a pretty short period of time, we're talking like a year or less, turned over half or more of their staff. So it's a pretty significant reboot, right? And sometimes we fail to understand just how significant that is, or even like how to maintain momentum and enable the team to continue to perform at the level that it needs to perform. Because when you're onboarding somebody, that takes time, right? And a lot of times we're really focused on the task side of it, the training side of it, and we kind of miss one of the most fundamental aspects of that process, which is building the trust, building the connections with the new people, between the new people and the new people with the existing staff, right? So there's an exercise we do when we're taking teams through the 5 behaviors process. That foundational or starting behavior is trust. And we define that as vulnerability-based trust, building those human connections before we try to accomplish a lot of other things, because it's so foundational to everything else. So what we'll tell teams to do, in fact, I just did this past week. I gave a team an assignment to do what's called a family histories exercise. And Patrick Lencioni outlines this in his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's a super simple exercise, but really powerful. I've done this a lot of times with teams, and it is amazing what this exercise accomplishes. It's real simple. You first of all, you go around the circle and you say how many siblings were in your family, where you fell in that order, in their birth order, and then simply describe an interesting or challenging experience from your childhood.
This isn't rocket science.
And dude, I mean, we're not asking anybody to, go into the deep, dark secrets of, growing up. You get to decide the level of self-disclosure that you want to bring. And, but it feels a little bit risky. Vulnerability always feels that way, but it's an appropriate kind of push, in that direction of being known, knowing others. And the reality is we all desperately want to be known. We're afraid of it because we're afraid that we may not be accepted for who we are, as we are in our story, but all of us desperately desire it. We desire that knownness and that acceptance in that knownness. And this is a really fun exercise just to learn about people. And it's amazing, done this a lot of times, how often this is done, and how you can take people who work together for a lot of years and go through that exercise and we're like, I never knew that about you. You gotta be kidding me. And you can tell by learning these things, it automatically takes the relationship to a deeper level. There's a greater understanding of, hey, this significantly shaped this person's life. It explains why they show up in relationships the way they do to a certain degree. And it generates a deeper level of not only human connection, but empathy. And empathy is vital for the healthy functioning of teams. And it's that simple. and it really works.
Well, and leader, that responsibility is on you to create that space to build connection. So maybe there's nothing better that you can do than to provide an environment for your people to connect. And that is one simple exercise that you could do on any single team to start letting those walls come down and start enabling some vulnerability and building trust, which is going to make your team not only more productive, but less stressed out as well.
I think, Paulie, too, I mean, in addition to that, if you want a simple, in coaching, we ask a lot of questions because questions generate deeper learning and self-awareness. So the questions at the end of his chapter that we started to touch on in our last podcast, I think just to go through these in your checklist, as you look at connecting better through meetings, what meetings do you need to add or discard to achieve that goal? What barriers stand in the way of a deeper connectedness right now? Every team is different. What are the answers for you? Which ingredients of connection are missing from your team? What's the biggest thing that you need to do differently as a leader to increase that connection? I think most leaders are pretty intuitive. They're pretty smart. They know a lot of times what they need to do. They just haven't acted on it. I think just taking 10 minutes, 15 minutes to walk through these questions and then answer them and take a couple of next steps would make an enormous difference for your team. And even, I'll tell you what, you want a great exercise? Pull your team together and ask those questions, same questions in community with your team. See what they say. Sometimes as leaders, we feel like we've always got to have the answers, right? Like I've got to be answer man, and one of the things that Henry talked about again on that chapter on connection is leaders tend to be persuaders. So we think we always have to come in with the ideas and persuade people to our way of thinking, when the reality is the best leaders are listeners. They're curious. They create space to really hear their team. What if you took those questions, pulled your team together and said, listen, I want to take our meetings to the next level, regardless of how healthy your team is. Your team doesn't have to be broken to do this exercise, right? All teams are in process and in this whole evolutionary process from, forming to healthy functioning. Let them answer the questions, give them engagement and ownership to the answers to these things, and then just simply act on their best thinking.
So maybe it takes 15 minutes. Leader, you can afford that. We'll make those questions available in the description box of where you're watching this video. And maybe today that could be the best investment of 15 minutes that you make all week long. So this is Paul McCosco and Bill Cox, both coaches with Bill Cox Coaching, saying so long for now on the Level Up Your Legacy podcast. We hope you tune in next week. And as always, we make our videos available to all those who sign up on our mailing list at billcoxcoaching.com. So make sure you go there. We'll even give you a free gift for signing up. Maybe tag or share this post with someone who you think it might be helpful to. And we'll see you next week on the Level Up Your Legacy podcast.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks again for watching today's video. And before you go, subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you go to billcoxcoaching.com. Sign up for our regular newsletter to help you move from success to significance and lead your life in such a way that you live a legacy. Have a great day.